Give it up for our B2S hosts.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Well, as Chris said, my name's Andres.
I'm Scott.
And I'm Abe.
And welcome to the very first ever taping of Between Two Stands, a show that takes a closer look at the personalities that make up the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And I would say, other than the face masks, sanitizing the hands, and the 6 feet apart, this is a very normal concert experience for us. So, yeah, thanks everybody. This is normal for us.
Totally normal. Absolutely.
And we figured we would start off today because we are so close to the concert hall that we play at, but not quite there, that we would kind of discuss what some of our favorite concert hall experiences are. I think a few of us have played in different concert halls around the world and in the country, so just want to throw that out there. What was
just the one for me? I've only
played in one.
No.
Yeah. So okay. Well, Abe, yeah. Let's start with you. What are some of your favorite concert halls that you played at?
So I was really lucky in the summer of 2016 to go on a European tour with the Pittsburgh Symphony. And we stopped at the Musikverein for a residency in Vienna. And that was one of the great experiences, I think, of my career, playing in that hall for 3 concerts. And I mean, it's just, you hear some of these halls you hear about from people who have played there, or just you sort of read about them, and it becomes sort of in your mind, maybe like classical music lure, right? So it's like, you have this this image of what it might sound like or what it'll look like, and it just defies all expectations.
What was the Musikverein going like? What was your build-up? What made it so special for you?
So I think just the orchestra that plays there, obviously, and then the history of the hall, and the history of the musicians and the conductors and who have performed there. And I was extremely surprised at how small it is. It's the stage is tiny. It doesn't fit that many people, but it sounds unbelievable when you're playing on stage there. So that was one of my favorite experiences. Scott, what do you think?
Well, I mean, before I get into that, I just want to thank the people that are looking at us. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
it's
thank
so
you guys.
Wonderful. Like, usually we're used to talking to each other in this, from a much less comfortable chair in my basement, and this is actually really nice. So thank you all for joining us in this first show. But as far as halls go. Most of my experiences in different halls have been auditions where I've been the only person playing on the stage. And it's, 10 minutes of either fame or shame. And, but it's amazing how different those halls can feel when you're the only person on the stage playing. And I remember playing, when it's a really big hall, it looks so impressive, and you feel small, and it's usually gilded and gorgeous and amazing. But then I play a note, and it kind of disappears, and then comes back to me 3 or 4 seconds later, and it's very odd compared to the practice rooms we're used to. So like the hall in Utah, Abravanel Hall, is quite large. I think it seats like 3,500 people. It's very big.
Did Meyerson feel like that in Dallas?
The Meyerson in Dallas is definitely like that. But, that was home for me. When I was in youth orchestra, that's where I played. Right. So I kind of expected that, and I thought that's what good is. And then I played here, which is so fantastic, and I played in Boston's Symphony Hall, which is another one that I would compare. And it's just interesting how your tastes change and how fun it is to hear those differences. What about you, Andres?
So Boston Symphony Hall comes to mind, and of course, Orchestra Hall. Not trying to plug it, come see us. Well, you should come see us, but this hall in particular is a very special place. And actually, I've played it in a hall in Austria, Graz, Austria, called the Stephaniensaal, which is just beautiful, and it sounds amazing too. Same thing, small stage. But I think what those all have in common is that they're pretty simple. It's just like a shoebox almost. Like if you take away all the murals and the the gilded and the sculptures, it's just a big shoebox, and it's actually, believe it or not, that's kind of like that's all you need. Like all these like fancy new halls, I feel like don't necessarily sound as good. They look beautiful, but they just don't sound as good. So like I feel like the ones that stand out are the very simple in architecture. So
Our professional acoustician. It's just a shoebox.
Just
That's
a
all
shoebox.
you need.
yeah, that's all you need. Yeah,
You know,
just call me.
Don't tell that to the Elbe in Hamburg, right?
Right. I mean, it's just a big room. So, all these other. I mean, the one that comes to mind, which is a great hall. I love playing there. Disney Hall. It's brand new, but it's just it doesn't have the same acoustics as here, for example. Like it's hard to hear on the stage, like across the stage. So here you could hear what you're playing, and you could hear what the person on the other side of the room is playing. It's a very special place. And that's the same with Boston too. And
Yeah, I had an interesting experience at Disney Hall. I played a concert there one time, and for some reason nobody was warming up on stage, so I went up and played on stage by myself. And fortunately, it was not an audition setting, so I wasn't that nervous. But I was really surprised.
That's cheating.
Sorry?
That's cheating.
yeah,
And I was really surprised. It really felt like I was playing in my living room, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't.
the sound just dissipates almost.
It totally disappears. But it doesn't sound that way when you're sitting in the audience. And sometimes that can be really deceiving, especially so I went and played an audition in Chicago one time, and I grew up there, so I went to the hall all the time. And then I got on stage to play an audition, and I felt like my sound wasn't filling the hall, and I was pressing and pressing and pressing to try and fill the hall, and my sound was cracking, and I didn't advance, so my
Bad
moment
memories.
of shame.
Bad memory.
The wonderful words "thank you" come from on the
Yeah.
other side of the curtain, and that means no.
It was
thank
not.
you.
It was not an enthusiastic thing.
They'll never say you're cut or you're done. They'll just say thank you, and it's such a terrible 2 words. It's like you know what that means, and it's like, okay, you just be meaner. Just say
Especially if you haven't played an excerpt yet.
yeah. They just don't like the way you walked on there.
So, have you ever been tempted just to be like, "You're welcome"?
Yeah. Yes.
Every time for me, I always want to yell it back.
But
you're not
I
supposed
mean,
to do that.
it's for me like that Stephaniensaal. It's great because, when you're playing in Europe, or when you're playing where this music was written, it's just like, I don't know about you guys, but it's just like a very magical experience because you can just kind of picture some of the composers walking around there. So that in terms of concert halls, that hall comes to mind because it's just very. You're just going right to the source,
I totally understand that. When I was in youth orchestra, I'll mention that again. I was in youth orchestra, everybody. It's very impressive. We went on tour my senior year to Europe, and we were playing Dvorak's 7th Symphony on tour, it was very nice. I don't know how we got the audiences that we got, but sure enough, these European audiences came out, and it was wonderful. They were very appreciative, and it meant a lot to me. But one of the most amazing experiences was playing Dvorak's 7th Symphony in Dvorak Hall. And that was incredible, seeing the statue of the man who wrote the piece outside and the building that was named after him. It was quite an experience. Really, really nice.
Well, that being said, hopefully we can be in there very soon. But I think this is a really cool experience. We were before you guys all came, we were kind of listening to the musicians warm up and play, and it's just such a fun thing that we're doing. I think we're playing and talking, just a more informal experience. So I did want to just introduce our guest today, Alex Kinmonth. Alex actually is one of the reasons and inspirations, believe it or not, for this show, because he is he's a principal oboe player, and at the surface, you know, who knows what he's like, but he's a really, really interesting dude, like one of the most interesting guys I've known. So I feel like, you know, it's going to be really cool to talk to him. But yeah, Alex Kinmonth, our first guest today. Alex grew up in Carlisle, Massachusetts, in a musical household. His mother is a piccolo maker, and his father is a violist. He began playing violin at the age of 5 and switched to oboe at 9 years old. He got his undergraduate at Juilliard and won his current position with the DSO in 2015 before he graduated, which is pretty incredible for those who don't know that. He's appeared as a soloist with the DSO and has played in esteemed ensembles around the country, the Metropolitan Opera and the New York Phil, to name a few. Please, everybody, give a big hand for Alex Kinmonth. He's going to play a few numbers here. So the first question is, why haven't you learned to play with your mask on yet? That needs to happen. No, just kidding. Nice job, man.
Yeah, really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have live music as part of this. You know,
Yeah.
usually we're just talking to
Really,
people.
yeah. Really.
Thank you, thank you. It's great to play live music again. Thank you all for being here. It's been
Yeah.
months since I've performed for a live audience, so
Was
it
that
feels
the
great.
first time? That was the first.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
first time.
I still haven't. I'm just sitting here, so. So just wanted to start off by asking you, what did you just play, and why did you choose that?
Was a piece by Britain called Pan, and it's part of a set of 6 metamorphoses, and that was just the first movement of that set. And yeah, it's about Pan, the flute player, and hopefully that came across. I thought it was a good piece for a day like this.
So you have aspirations of being a flute player.
Oh yeah, following in my mom's footsteps for sure.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if many people know, but what you're playing on is a reed, and specifically a double reed, which is like 2, pieces of wood bound together, and it's like a very difficult thing to do. Can you talk about your process on
Sure.
how you make them and how long you spend making them, and
Yeah. So I guess a lot of people don't actually know that most professional oboists and English horn players make their own reeds. So like where a trumpet and brass instruments have a mouthpiece that you buzz into, oboists and bassoonists have a double reed. So you don't actually make any sound with your lips. What's making sound is the two really thin pieces of wood, basically, and when you blow through them, they vibrate together. And that's what actually makes the sound. And so, yeah, I spend probably as much time as I spend practicing making reeds for my instrument. And it's a blessing and a curse because on the one hand, you can design your own voice, really, as a musician. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to sound like and build your reeds based on that and how you want them to feel. But it's also a curse, on the other hand, that you have to spend so much time doing it, and a lot of the times they might not work and you don't know why, and you wasted maybe 4 hours on a reed that you'll never even play in public. So it's quite the process. And I think maybe from start to finish, making a reed would probably take me between 1 and 2 hours in total work.
So when you're playing in different environments, you have to make adjustments to the reed. So the difference between playing in the hall as an example and playing outdoors, did you make specific reeds for this performance?
I was lucky enough not to have to make specific reeds for this performance, but I definitely...
Why not?
I definitely use different reeds for different functions. So I like to have a diverse set of reeds at any given moment so that I can play something like this where it's a recital all by myself. And I'll probably go for a reed that is a bit more like malleable in a way so that I can control it. And in the orchestra, I'll probably, well, you're not playing all the time like a recital, so you can sort of get away with a bigger reed because you need to project over sometimes 100 other people. And so in the orchestra, I'll usually use bigger reeds, and for solo stuff, I'll use reeds that feel a bit smaller and more manageable.
Cool.
And the weather has a big change too. I'll use different reeds if it's really rainy and the air pressure is really low. My reeds will feel totally different than a day like this where it's sunny and the air pressure is probably a bit higher.
I feel like a lot of our instruments deal with weather in their own weird way, right? Like, I mean, you too, like hot and cold.
Not really. Not for us. I mean, I feel like brass instruments, there's a reason marching bands use brass instruments a lot.
Yeah.
And sure, the heat affects like the pitch a little bit, but the act of playing it, the real trick that you have to watch out for, especially in this kind of climate, is winter, making sure that you don't stick to your instrument.
Yeah. You'll practice more, but. So what I was talking about earlier with Alex.
Like, before I rudely interrupted?
Sorry. Continue.
No, that's good. I was just wondering, about your preparation time. So because this was more of a recital experience and more outdoors, you said bigger reeds. Is this do you know what it's going to sound like before you make it, and you have a strategy behind all of that, and that's why you have a variety, or is it just you make it and it comes out the way it does, and then you adjust?
Yeah, it's probably closer to the latter. I'd say there's, unfortunately, I think there are things that I look for in my materials. So basically, it's a piece of bamboo is what we're making these reeds from, and so it's always going to be changing. It's a piece of wood. It's natural. It's just going to warp over time. So you can sort of guess as to what it might end up like based on if it's like a really wide piece or a really narrow piece that'll usually make the reed feel a certain way, but there's basically no guarantee from when I tie a reed onto the actual tube, the part that goes in the oboe. There's no guarantee what it will sound like when I actually finish it and get it sounding good. It might feel completely different from when I started making it.
I love that we're talking about 2 pieces of wood
Yeah.
and string.
Yeah.
It's like, get the duct tape out. Let's make this thing happen.
Basically, I mean, it's half voodoo is reed making. There's like, if you dance around it for 30 seconds before you put it in water, then it will be good for the rest of the day.
You don't want to walk into Alex doing that, by the way.
I had a friend that swore by soaking his reeds in coffee, which I might not recommend, but.
So as riveting as the reads are, I do want to tell you guys, so Alex, this is just a few of some of his accomplishments, and it's pretty amazing. So Alex is plays soccer. He's into skateboarding. He's pretty knowledgeable about whiskey, but I would say we all are. He's a junior Olympic fencer, a BMX biker, which is like trick biking, rock climbing, mountain biking, and a award-winning young writer, published for short stories. So that's all I have listed here. I think there's probably more. I find out something new about him every day.
I thought he made reads all the time.
Yeah. How do you have the time for this? That's the question. Like, how do you have the time for this? And is there something that you haven't tried that you want to do?
Yeah, I think just like having a good balance has always been really important to me. I think I get so much inspiration from activities outside of music that sort of inform how I think about music and like the characters and emotions I'm trying to convey to an audience. So I think it's always been really helpful, it's especially when you're practicing for auditions and stuff like that. You sort of get into this zone and you start focusing on these teeny details and you sort of forget about the bigger picture things in life, which is really what music is trying to communicate to begin with. So I always find that having a balance is easier in a way, even time-wise, than just trying to focus on one grind for a really long time.
So it's like an outlet. You use those as like an outlet?
Yeah, definitely.
So is that more of an artistic decision? Like, are you trying to experience more of life to then let that influence your interpretation of the music that you play? Or is it more like you want to be more in control of your body in certain ways so that you can execute the physical act of playing more accurately, or both?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I think all of the things Andres just listed are basically things I've always done growing up, and they're definitely passions of mine.
Especially the whiskey.
Yeah, especially the
Started
whiskey.
at a young age.
I've got a journal. I don't know how many people have whiskey journals, but that's how nerdy I am about it. But those are the things that I've always done. So in a way, it does help me physically to prepare for oboe. Just like keeping healthy and limber is just, it makes things easier.
BMX biking would not keep me healthy and limber.
Yeah. There's, you can fall off and maybe you're injured. Never broken a bone biking yet, so fingers crossed on
But
that.
I feel like a lot of those are like intense focus and sometimes repetitive things. So like I feel like they translate well, and you have to perform under pressure. So I feel like that's helpful.
I think there is definitely a lot of crossover between sports and music, especially team sports and orchestral playing. Like, I always like to say that orchestra is a team sport because it is a really physical thing. Like, everybody is making acoustic music using only their bodies and the muscles that they have. And the communication that goes on between different musicians on stage is a lot like what happens on a sports field. Like, you might not be able to say, hey, run over there, because the crowd's chanting and everything's happening so fast, but you build up that chemistry. And I think the same thing happens on stage, where if you hear someone to your right doing something maybe a slight bit differently than they did yesterday, that you're ready for it and you already know what they're going to do. So I think there's a lot of crossover. And I like how it does help me practice focusing. Like, you definitely need a lot of focus if you're going down a mountain on a bicycle at 40 miles an hour, because if you lose focus, things are not going to be very fun for much longer. So, and it's the same playing a performance. Like, you need to have focus for maybe 90 minutes at a time.
So that's why when you see him and he doesn't look nervous, he's not, because his life's not on the line. playing oboe.
I find it completely the opposite of that. If my life's on the line, I just know what I have to do and I'm not nervous. But if it's a performance where nothing bad happens if I don't play well, other than
that's
I
when
don't
you
play
fall.
well, that's when I get really nervous.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you are probably one of the youngest principals in the country, right? Like, I mean, in any instrument, I would say, right? I mean, how old were you when you got this?
When I got the job, I was 21. I think
Wow.
then I was probably one of the youngest principals in the country. Now I'm 27.
So now you're old.
Yeah, now I'm an old guy. I think it's kind of going in that way in general for American orchestras. I think, especially with so many more orchestras doing blind auditions these days, I think more young people are being hired in principal positions these days than maybe 10 or 15 years ago even.
Gotcha. And so in the bio, you said you started on violin. Like, do you still play? And then did that like help you, or why did you switch to oboe, I guess? And did it help you in your, oboe world?
Yeah, it definitely helped me. I actually played violin for maybe 4 years without ever actually learning how to read music. I would do it all by ear. Any piece I was learning on the violin, I would just listen to a recording and I would sort of like figure it out. And like if I played a wrong note, I would just be like, oh, that didn't sound right. What's the right note? And so I didn't even know how to read music until I started playing oboe. So I think having that just practice in listening to lots of music and being able to hear when things weren't what I thought they should be helped me a lot when I was learning oboe, just because I had things in the back of my head already.
Gotcha.
So speaking of like a unique thing about the oboe, as principal oboe, you often have really evocative solos that like everybody can think about, like the coffee dance from the Nutcracker or anything like that. And I was just wondering, because you have to play these solos that are often charged in a certain way, is there some composer or anything else that wrote like the sexiest music for you? What would you say that would be? And actually, I want to ask Abe and Andres that same question.
Nice. Well, I think, honestly, sexy, I think Strauss wrote some pretty sexy oboe parts. There's a big part in the Dance of the Seven Veils, which is, I don't know if sexy is the exact appropriate word for that scene, if you know the story.
It kind of is, right? Like she's seducing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there's a prominent oboe part in that. Rosenkavalier, it's got some really nice solos in there too. I think Strauss wrote some of my favorite oboe solos, but also like Brahms and Stravinsky wrote really good oboe parts too, actually.
Very interesting. Abe?
Do I have to answer the question?
Wait, what?
Do I have to answer the question?
No.
Okay. Well, so for cello, I find that, I don't know if sexy is the right word, but I would say, there certainly are some very romantic solos. And, Brahms' Second Piano Concerto is an extremely beautiful solo for principal cello.
Well, what qualities would you make different between a romantic solo and like a sexy solo?
I mean, not a cop-out, but I got to agree with Alex. I mean, I've talked about it on some of the previous episodes we did, but just like Strauss, there's a reason why they call him the romantic era composer. He just like has that lushness about him, sexiness about, not him per se, actually definitely not about him, but about his music.
That mustache was pretty nice, though.
Yeah, it was nice. Someone would think that's nice. Not me, but... so, yeah, I just think, I was actually thinking, Dance of the Seven Veils. I mean, I think we were talking about it, but, Strauss just has this way about him where he'll have this, 2-second melody that's the most beautiful thing you've ever heard, and then it's just gone forever. It's just like this quick little, this beautiful, melody that you just wish was a whole symphony of itself, and then it's gone. So, it's a very fleeting way that he writes his tone poems and stuff. But I think he writes the sexiest music to me. So that's a no-brainer.
I'll answer this question. I mean, for horns, it's actually really similar because Strauss wrote such great horn solos. But I wouldn't consider like Till as a sexy character. It's more of just a prankster. Right. Brahms really did write some of the best solos for us. But then I think the music in general, you have like Ravel and Debussy, and that whole impressionist style tends to be pretty evocative, and Stravinsky, I would actually agree with you, because it can be so visceral, which, I don't know. There you go.
Yeah, Ravel and Debussy are also great oboe writers.
Yeah.
The French oboe school.
So the answer is all of them, right?
Yeah.
All of the composers equally.
Every oboe solo is the sexiest solo ever.
when Alex plays it. Abe, so we have some questions that I think some of you guys submitted that we're going to try and get to. Do you want to?
Sure. So the first question is, how does the DSO differ from other orchestras to you?
So I can take a stab at this one. I find the camaraderie in the DSO to be really unique. I think that we all, this is an act. I don't like any of these people, but the other musicians in the DSO I really appreciate. And it's because of that, we want to help each other. We want to make each other sound good. And there is an active listening all the way across the stage. And we have our hall that does shape how we play. And so we end up playing more precisely together, I think, than many other symphony orchestras in the country.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback onto that because, playing with other orchestras around the country, it's a very special dynamic here. Musicians we just have fun together on a regular basis. There's really not like any time where there's any animosity really, and at least from my experience, it's just like all good vibes, which is very, very rare. I mean, even these guys, like in the tent here, like behind the stage,
Thanks, guys.
Behind the scenes, like we just get along. It's like this symbiotic relationship, which is just really rare. So like very appreciative, and I think it translates when you play. I mean, like just like a good sports team, if you get along, you're gonna have better product. So I think that really helps, and it's very much overlooked in a lot of places, but here it's present. So I'm very thankful of that for sure.
Alec, do you want to answer the question?
I think I pretty much agree with what you guys said. I mean, I haven't played with too many other orchestras in America, and the ones I have, I've basically just been subbing. So I've only been with other orchestras for maybe like a week or two at a time. But yeah, I think there's just such a close-knit community vibe about this orchestra, and we're all very much willing to like put in the after-hours work, have mini sectionals, stuff like that. And everybody's just really open and communicative, and no one ever gets like easily offended or anything like that. So it just feels like a very free, open space where everybody just wants to make the best music possible, and we know that's the goal, and we all just enjoy doing it with each other. I think, that's what I enjoy most about this group.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you guys have said. The other thing that I would like to point out is that I feel like one of the things that I hear complaints about from my friends in other orchestras sometimes is that, when the music director's not there, or when there's a conductor that, the orchestra doesn't like, then the product suffers. And one of the things that I've noticed here is that the orchestra never plays below a certain level. And it's a lot of times at a level at the first rehearsal that is higher than some other orchestra's first performance in a week. And that's one of the things that I noticed in my first rehearsal with the orchestra here, was just that we read down this piece that was super obscure. I could only find a recording that was the original LP press that was all scratched up. I found it in, there was one copy in all of the Dallas public libraries. And, and I was expecting that we were going to be, stopping and starting and putting things together. And we just read it down like it was the concert. And it scared me, but I was thrilled. So that's the thing that I think makes the Detroit Symphony stand out among other orchestras.
That's a great question.
Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, let's do one more.
So we talked a little bit about it with Alex, but how do you prepare before a concert?
So actually, I think that your answer to the last question was a lot about this question as well. The amount of time, I'd rather not waste time in rehearsal having to learn the piece. That needs to be done beforehand, and then we can come together, make it into something, and then we can use the rehearsal time to really make it a special performance and come together with the unique ideas that make music more interesting as opposed to just a successful performance. And that's, it should all be easy when you're with your colleagues and you have that inspiration.
And to that end, it allows for a conductor, no matter whether it's Yoder or a guest coming in, they have this this palette to work with that is just ready to go. And so if they ask us to do something, we can do it because we're all ready to go.
Yeah. I think there's also a weight on listening to pieces before we play them. If we're going to play a piece, I think we all listen to it, and kind of get it in our ears. Obviously, if it hasn't been written before, you can't do that. But, if we're playing a major work, kind of get in your ear, prepare, play along with it. That's a big way that I, know where my part fits in. And also just before a performance in particular, I personally just get there early and just like play slowly and actually just get it, make sure it's in my hands and mostly in my head. Just make sure that if I needed to have memorized it, I have it memorized and there's no flaws in that way. And just like doing visualization and imagining myself playing it with the group on stage, it's really helpful. So sometimes I'll go on stage and play the part and so that it's like a deja vu when we play for you guys. So that's kind of how I perform and practice, especially difficult pieces. But yeah, what about you, Alex?
I like to listen a lot to the pieces that we play before I even look at the music. Actually, I think it's good to have the whole work in my ear before I look at the oboe part, because a lot of the times when if I'm behind or something on preparation and I need to just learn notes and I don't have time to really study by listening beforehand, it's okay, you can learn the notes, but you don't really necessarily know how it fits into the rest of the orchestra, if you're accompanying someone, if you have the solo voice, just stuff like that. So yeah, listening and sort of score studying before I actually start practicing is really helpful for me, and it makes practicing go a lot quicker just because I know exactly how I want something to sound because I already know what the piece as a whole sounds like. And I think, that piggybacks off of what we were already talking about, is being prepared before the rehearsal just allows you to spend that rehearsal time working on artistic things and details and things that really make a piece magical rather than just organizing everybody and making sure people, everybody's ducks are in a row, that kind of stuff.
To put that in a little bit of context, we often don't have the first we usually don't have the first rehearsal for a piece until the week that we are performing it. So the rehearsal time is really limited, and if we don't show up as prepared as possible, that could be troublesome.
Well, we just have a little bit of time here left, but did want to do one of our trivia games. And we tried very hard to get you guys up here to play with us, but we're deciding to be safe rather than sorry, and I think that's the right move. But hopefully, eventually, that'll happen.
We don't want to get too close.
We don't want to get too close. Yeah. We do, but we don't. But anyway, until then, we'll play it amongst us. I came up with some questions that these guys don't know, And where is it? Yeah, we have some very beautiful handmade DSO bass masks that we're going to give out to the winner. Very coveted. And so, if you know the answer, just, don't yell it out or think about it. We'll talk about it afterwards. But, and are you guys ready? So in order to buzz in, just say your own names. Say your own names. We'll keep it simple. Okay. You guys know your own names, right?
I think so.
Cool. Okay. Here we go. Question 1. Prior to the 5-note staff notation we know today, what was the name of the notation used in medieval Gregorian chants to indicate direction of pitch?
Damn, I can see it in my, I know what it looks like in my head. I've seen it.
We're halfway
out.
there.
I know.
Nothing? I feel like you would know this. Okay. Anyway, they're called neumes. 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 It's a good. If it's on Jeopardy, maybe you can impress your partner or something.
That was one of the easy questions.
Uh-oh.
No, they're mixed in. Okay. Tie game. What? Question 2.
You're doing great, Alex.
If you can't get these, I'm going to keep this. What was the name of the classical era style of music characterized by minor keys, unpredictable melody lines, and frenzied dynamics?
Scott Strong.
Alex.
Ooh.
Storm and Drung.
That's right. That's right, dude.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nice job, man.
Storm und Drang. It translates to storm and drag, and it's like you hear it in some of Mozart's symphonies. Beethoven, Gluck, Weber, Schubert,
Haydn.
they all use it.
Haydn's creation.
Haydn, yeah. Exactly. Some of Haydn's symphonies, just like very erratic. It was just like it's also in I think visual art too. It's a technique that they used, and in literature too. Speaking of Haydn, okay, so 1 for you, 1 for Alex.
Awesome.
Speaking of Haydn, the next 2 have to do with him. I'm sorry, the next 1 has to do with him. Okay. This is kind of a long. I'm going to give you some backstory because this is kind of a cool event in music history. But in the last movement of Haydn's 45th Symphony, entitled the Farewell Symphony, he instructs the musicians to leave the stage one by one until there are no musicians left. They actually, when they performed originally, they snuffed out their candles and then left the stage until there was only two musicians left, Haydn being one of them. It was a funny and subtle way of Haydn asking his patron for a much-needed vacation. Who was Haydn making this musical plea to? Oh, Una, our next guest knows, but you can answer later.
Scott.
Yes.
This is the Esterhazy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their court.
Prince Nicholas Esterhazy, exactly. You don't need to know the first name. Yeah. Perfect. I'm just glad we got an answer, folks. Yeah, just like a really, that's a great story, I thought. Like, just like, subtly asking a vacation, and yeah, it's great.
You can tell in music school we spent most of our time practicing.
Yeah.
Right.
But the surprise symphony was because someone was falling asleep, right?
What's that?
The surprise symphony, right?
Right.
One of the patrons was falling asleep.
Yeah. And so, like, there's like a
Big
big
loud
symphony,
crash.
right?
Wake
Yeah,
him
Haydn
up.
had a good sense of humor. It's cool. Okay, so Abe, you could either tie it up, or we can get a winner, or it'll just be tied.
I can let someone win. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, last
He's already
question.
got a mask.
Which of these was not a music director of the New York Philharmonic? Which composer was not a music director of the New York Philharmonic? Leonard Bernstein, Pierre Boulez, Arnold Schoenberg, or Gustav Mahler?
Scott. Schoenberg.
Exactly.
Nicely
The
done.
winner. The winner.
Give me my prize. Oh, I'm going to be so
Don't touch
stylish
me, though.
in this.
Don't touch me.